What's up, motivators? Taren here. Today we're going to talk about the 3 best ways that I find athletes can monitor their recovery levels. The goal of all of your training is to push as hard as you can while stopping right before the point at which you stop absorbing all of your training. You want to be on that nice upward curve where all of your time is really useful and before you hit the point of diminishing returns. How you do that is by monitoring your recovery levels, and today we are going to give you the system for what we like athletes to use so that they can get into that nice meaty part of the curve where every hour you spend as a triathlete, a runner, a cyclist, whatever it might be, actually generating results.
My name is Taren Gazelle. In my 20s, I was overweight, unfulfilled, and couldn't even run to the end of the block. Over the following years, I found endurance sports, lost 65 pounds, won age groups, raced world championships, broke records, and trained and learned from some of the best athletes and coaches in the world. You too can use endurance sports to change your life and accomplish your fitness goals. You just need a system that's meant for us amateurs who want to be our best while feeling our strongest and healthiest. My company Motive offers that system, and I want to share some of the tips from it today.
Let's dive into it. What I'm going to give you here are 3 methods that you can use to start monitoring your recovery levels. They're in order of probably the most structured but maybe least effective to the most subjective but probably the most effective. So what I like to do is say use these in order, and as you start going through them in this order, you can start transferring method number 1 into method number 2 and method number 2 into method number 3. And as you're doing that, you are learning what good recovery feels like, what a little bit too much feels like, so that you can start making that more subjective but really effective method that we're going to talk about at the end a little bit more quantifiable, so that you can identify what the signs are of doing a little bit too much or when you can push a little bit more. The first method that is really quantifiable but needs to be paired with other measures is HRV. There's a link in the description below to a free HRV monitoring spreadsheet that we use because things like Whoop, Aura, HRV for training, the app on your phone, they are very good for getting you an HRV reading, but how do you actually interpret that? Well, that's where I recommend using this spreadsheet here. What you get when you download that for free just by putting in your email address is a spreadsheet that is made for you that all you have to do is put in your HRV reading every single day. And after about 30 days, what it does is it calculates your 30-day rolling average of your HRV versus your 7-day rolling average. It's comparing your most recent training, what is happening in your body over the last several days, versus what the recent trends are, like what's your global training. What you're looking for is you want this spreadsheet to stay green. It's not always going to stay green, but when it hits red and when that 7-day average dips under the 30-day average, like it does here in moments, that means that your acute training load, what you are going through right at the moment, is imbalanced. It's maybe due to having a couple bottles of wine, or maybe you stepped up the training too much, or maybe you're stressed out. What I like about HRV is it's a little bit of a leading indicator where it'll tell you what's kind of coming up in the 4 to 14 day period if you keep going down this path. So the actual number, the reading that you get versus what somebody else gets doesn't really matter. It's what you are doing right now versus what you typically do. Why this is nice is because it gives you an indication of how much is too much, how little is too little, what you can appropriately handle, and it will account for all of the life stresses, all of the poor sleep, all of the things on a global level. And if you start having these moments where you dip under your 30-day rolling average, you can look back and go, oh, okay, maybe I should be aware of those things that are popping up. That said, there are times that HRV can be a little bit off, definitely on a day-to-day basis, which is why we use a 7-day average over a 30-day average. I've almost always found that it's about 80 to 90% accurate, but what are some other methods that you can know, boom, instantly on a day that maybe you need a little bit of extra rest? Well, for that, there's this study, again, link is in the description below, that just simply looked at overtraining syndrome. and it went and looked at a bunch of relevant studies, put them all together, and looked at what were some of the biggest indicators of a overtraining situation popping up. One of the biggest indicators was sore muscles. Now you might think, hey, aren't sore muscles the point? Not really. Typically, sore muscles are an indication that you did too much for your body to actually repair itself very quickly. And endurance athletes, we back up day after day after day after day. We don't want to come into a session or a workout feeling a little bit sluggish, a little bit overtrained, and then having to loosen our way up and get through some sore muscles. We want to, boom, get right at it. And when we can, boom, get right at it, that means that every single session is going to be absorbed a lot better. We're still in that upward curve and not in the diminishing returns point where additional hours isn't really giving you any more benefit. So if you have sore muscles one day, I wouldn't worry about it. If you have sore muscles continuously over the course of a few weeks and you see, holy smokes, over the course of the last 4 weeks, I've had sore muscles 3-4 times, that's probably an indication that your training balance isn't correct. Either your life stress is too high or your training stress is too high and you need to bring one of them down. We need to take a quick second to thank a sponsor. Athletic Greens is a product that I use literally every single day. I like Athletic Greens as a replacement for a traditional multivitamin. Athletic Greens is made with whole foods. It contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and nutrients, and because it is made from whole foods and you can mix it up as a greens powder in a shake or whatever you want, it's much easier for your body to actually absorb. If you go to athleticgreens.com/Taren, you will get a free year's supply of vitamin D with your first purchase and 5 free travel packages. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/Taren to get yourself some Athletic Greens. Everyone that I know that's tried it has absolutely loved it, so you will too. Give it a shot. The third thing is low motivation. This is a tricky one because there are times where low motivation is literally just part of the training process and it's something that you have to just suck it up and get through. But there's a lot of times that low motivation is actually a tool and your brain is telling you, hey, this is a little bit too much. Let's bring it back down a little bit. The problem is that just about every endurance athlete, when they experience low motivation, thinks that they are in the first camp where it's just something that they have to go and get the I'm tougher than low motivation badge. And that's just not the case. Use that motivation as a tool to make sure you're still in the upward trajectory and you're not just spending time training for the sake of training. Training more hours past the point of low motivation when it's a tool that is telling us to back off a little bit is literally just training more hours. It's not doing anything to make you any faster, make you any healthier. You are just spinning your wheels. You want to stay in that nice upward trajectory, and low motivation is occasionally something that we should listen to. But because it's so subjective, I went looking for a system for how to use motivation that you could employ. And I actually found a friend of mine who is a coach, an author, a really smart individual, Nick Buska, who has written about low motivation and how he employs a system for his athletes to determine whether they are part of low motivation type 1 or low motivation type 2. There's a link to Nick's article about low motivation in his system. You can go read it in the description below. But generally, you use these 3 methods, and then I want you to look at each of these 3 methods, whether your HRV has dipped under the 30-day average. If you have several days of sore muscles in the last month, if you have several days of low motivation in the last month, and then pair that with these 6 questions. First, do you feel wired and tired, like you're tired but you have a hard time getting to sleep, particularly for a nap in the afternoon? Second, do you have difficulty sleeping at night, getting to sleep or staying asleep? Third, have you averaged less than 7.5 hours sleep over the last several months? Fourth, is your life stress quite high? Fifth, is your training stress abnormally high? Like, you're in a big block. And 6, when you take rest from training, do you actually feel worse? If your answer is yes to, I'd say, 2 or more of these questions, and you've seen your HRV dip, or your muscles get sore, or your motivation be low, you are almost definitely in that point of diminishing returns. In this case, as a first step, what I like to do is assign 3 days of nothing but completely light training, like very, very light, like end every single workout feeling guilty for how little you did. This might be a 30-minute bike or a commute to and from work or a totally easy 1,000-meter swim where it just feels like you warmed up, but just keep it very light. Hopefully that snaps you out of it, lets you recover a little bit, but if this instance happens twice or more within a 3-month period, then it's an indication that your overall training stress is too high and your overall life stress is too high. And one of those things needs to be readjusted. It just does, because you're not doing any favors for your performance or your health. Parting word, what I will say is, because endurance athletes are very guilty of always thinking more is better. Well, I can tell you that studies have shown that even at the level of a Ironman distance athlete, less than 12 hours a week has actually been shown for the average age grouper to produce some of the best performances out there, comparable to 22-hour weeks of training. So trust me, training a little bit less and bringing your balance into a little bit more of an appropriate level isn't going to hurt your performance. If anything, it might be better for your performance because you're better rested. We want you 100% healthy, 98% trained. That is way better than 98% healthy and 100% trained. Thank you for watching, motivators. If you're looking for a training plan that incorporates these methods that is as good as a one-on-one coach but as inexpensive as doing it yourself, check out our Motive training app that covers triathlons, running races, duathlons, swim runs, and cycling events. There's a link in the description below where you can check out your customized training plan for free. Also, if you rather listen to these tips, we also publish these videos in podcast format on the Taren's Motive Method podcast, so you can check that out. And if you don't want to do either of those things, but you found this video helpful, hit us up with a virtual high five by smashing the like button below. Later, motivators.